Welcome to teleSUR English. We go now to Russia once again as the president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, continues its agenda. In this case, it's visiting the fortress of St. Peter and St. Paul. We've been seeing images from the ongoing agenda of the Venezuelan president in Russia after participating in the 80th anniversary of the win of the Soviet army over the Nazi regime in 1945. That is the 80th anniversary and victory day in Russia. President Nicolás Maduro has participated in this along with the Venezuelan delegation, also in a bilateral meeting with Vladimir Putin, president of the Russian Federation, and continued to participate in different activities. He traveled from Moscow to St. Petersburg after the main event took place on Friday to continue honoring the historic truth that is celebrated in Russia this week. In this case, we see, as part of his agenda, the visit to the fortress of St. Peter and St. Paul were laid, installing 6 bastions that would be joined by imposing walls. Over the years, the facilities were expanded and improved. We're talking about this fortress that the president is visiting. Although it is believed that they would have been effective if they had to withstand any warlike conflict. We're talking about a key fortress in the Russian Federation as we continue to see the visit of the president Nicolás Maduro, accompanied by first combatant Cilia Flores. We've seen different activities taking part with both bilateral meetings, the strengthening of bilateral ties with the Russian Federation, also with other nations of the world. We've seen in the last few days bilateral and very significant meeting between Venezuelan authorities and the Chinese delegation led by President Xi Jinping, strengthening the cooperation and strategic alliance between both nations. The same happened with Russia itself just one day before. All of this in the framework of the 80th anniversary of that historical win in 1945, in which the Soviet army, the Red Army, finally won, obtained a victory over fascism, over the Nazi regime, and that put an end to the Second World War. That is what this week different leaders around the world are commemorating, especially in the Russian Federation. We've seen leaders from across the world arrive and take part in the celebrations, and we continue to see, in this case, we were saying, the visit of President Nicolás Maduro to the fortress of St. Peter and St. Paul in St. Petersburg after having been in Moscow for the past days, as we were saying, participating in the central event of Victory Day and also in different bilateral meetings with delegations and leaders from around the world. One of the most important aspects of this trip that the Venezuelan leader has highlighted is the relevance of understanding that moment, the historical moment of 1945, to also understand the struggles that the world is facing today with a new upsurge of fascist movements across the world, and also a new wave of solidarity and international cooperation in what is set to be a new fight against fascism. This is what was repeated by many of the leaders, many leaders from the global south that gathered in Russia at a very important historical moment, but also a very clear image of the world that is being shaped nowadays. We've seen also the presence of the president of Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel, for example, Both Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel and Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro were cheered when they left the main activity, the parade, on Friday, May 9th, that celebrated that 80th anniversary of that historical win, cheered by the international delegations and also by the people who had gathered to assist the celebrations, the people from the Russian Federation in this case, as they highlighted and understood the similarities in the struggle that both leaders from Latin America carry out against U.S. imperialism in this case, as many people within the Russian Federation and the former Soviet Union also do. We've seen images of they being cheered as they left the premises, as now we continue to see images of the visit of the president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, in this case at the fortress of St. Peter and St. Paul. They're touring the different installations of the fortress. We've been talking about the significance of this visit. And there we've seen the President Nicolás Maduro take part in one more act, all of them in the framework, as we were saying, of the 80th anniversary of that win of 1945, and also a key date to highlight the importance of international solidarity that has to do with understanding how this historical moments did not shape the path of just one nation, but changed the path of the international world at that moment, stopping the rise of fascism in the mid-20th century. And once again, that international solidarity is being reiterated right now. We continue to see the Venezuelan president shaking hands with the Russian delegation. He's been touring and sharing his official agenda also with high authorities from the Russian Federation who received him in St. Petersburg. We've also seen a similar set of activities by Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel just days before the official parade for Victory Day. All of this, as we were saying, a show of strengthening solidarity between the nations. Those were the images from Russia as we've seen the president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, continue with his official agenda at the Russian Federation in the framework of the 80th anniversary of that historical win from the Soviet Union over the Nazi regime. We will continue to bring you all information. Stay tuned with teleSUR English.